See about getting some folks in here. We'll give it just a minute as usual to
Yep. And here we are.
get started.
I see the link
Make
there.
sure it's live. Let's see.
You hear that scratch?
All right. Yeah, that just then I was loading something on the other screen. Minute or two for folks to get in here.
All right.
Now my computer's talking to me.
Got Nick is here.
Let's see here. Oh, we need to get that going so we can see. That.
I was kind of shocked there wasn't any violence at that pro Israeli Jewish rally in D.C.
Yeah, I saw where like a bunch of folks went in like overnight and spray painted all kind of crap on the medical tents and stuff. So this
Yeah.
morning they had to go in and literally turn the canvas around backwards so that it wasn't all showing on the outside. And then I saw where a few hundred of them were at Dulles Airport,
Mm-hmm.
and the bus drivers that have to take them from the tarmac to the terminal or whatever were refusing to take them because they were,
Really?
yeah, it was stupid stuff.
I mean, how would they
Um,
know? Unless they like wearing T-shirts or something, you know?
Probably.
Yeah. That's just crazy. That's stupid. So,
Let's see. Let me check the check the thing here and see how many we got. It's not updating on my end yet,
I don't see
but
it here either.
yeah, I'm watching the. Good evening, Miss Crystal. How are you?
I see, you know, Biden gave, 10 billion dollars to Iran again. What
I
what are we
I
doing
give
here?
I give up.
I mean,
We can't make sense of this nonsense. Other than all the joints hurting, Crystal, I'm doing great.
joints are always hurting.
I keep saying every morning when we get out of bed, it's like an old car, and you go to sit up out of bed, and all the lights on the dashboard
Yeah.
come on at the same time.
I used to laugh like when we jump and I had hit the ground and when I was young, I nothing happened. When I got older and I started jumping, I'm like, okay, that arm's good, that arm's good. Shake both legs, they're good. My back's good. Okay, I'm good. I can get up. Let me take my shoe off. But now I get out of bed that way.
Right.
you know?
That's me. I got to swing the legs off the side of the bed for a minute and
Yeah.
make sure the legs are working and the feet and toes are working, and that I can sit up straight and the back doesn't just say, nope, you're going back down or something
Collect my
stupid like
wits. Yeah, absolutely.
that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we can go ahead and we'll
All
get
right.
started chit chat, and folks can kind of trickle in as they want. Um, Gonna keep it real informal again tonight, guys. Just kind of like I always do with these. Just for anybody that's watching and you're not used to it, if you're looking for some high-speed professional production, um, you're at the wrong place. Um, I like to do my videos like I've always said of we're all just sitting down having a conversation across the table with a cup of coffee, and it's just that informal. So That's kind of, again, what we want to do tonight, just kind of informally talk about a few things. The biggest thing that we had on our mind was um, either, and there's a couple of different angles we'll go at this, but either starting a mutual assistance preparedness group, whatever name you want to put on it, joining one, um, just all that kind of general idea and topic, because it seems that it's a common theme that folks are always saying is they don't know how to start something, they don't know how to join something, they're worried about this, that, or the other, or whatever. So we thought we'd just kind of touch on that a little bit and go from there. A few points to establish up front. So what we're primarily talking about here is a group of folks that you want to be with and be part of, to rely on, to help take care of each other and your family, friends, whatever the case may be, in really, really bad, God forbid, grid down type times. We're not talking about some, militia or anything like that.
Right.
This is we're trying to stay fed, healthy, and safe when things get really stupid and society ain't society anymore. That's that's the context that we're coming from at this. So if you're looking for more than that, um, you're not going to get it in this one. So just to put that out up front. Um, there's multiple ways to go about this stuff, and there's a lot of different things that you got to remember. And Noel and I have talked about a lot of this stuff, not only just recently, but over many
Yeah.
years
A lot of
now.
years.
Um, and not only talking about, but actually doing it ourselves. And like for me, the group of friends and folks that I've got, and again, we're not going to get overly specific on things because OPSEC's a thing, and there's just certain parts of personal business that the whole world don't need to know. But I am on what did I say? Either the third or third-ish, fourth-ish uh, revolution of folks to get where I'm at, and it's only been in the past 3 or 4 years that I've actually really felt solid with who we've got. Um, it's been a thing, and again, context, 3 or 4 years of feeling solid about it, and have been doing it for well over 20 plus years. I've had a lot of people come and go. So that's probably one of the first points to get up front. Um, you're going to have people come and go. It's going to take a while, unfortunately, for you to find and get hooked up with all the right people. It's just a thing. And the only way you're going to find that out is to do it and get out with folks, do things, and you'll slowly learn some people fit, some people don't fit. Some folks decide they want to go another way. Some folks you have to send another way. And sometimes you'll have folks that you'll part ways with, that you'll part ways on perfectly good terms. You just need to be, for many different reasons, in two different, you know, situations. And, there's nothing negative about it. It just is what it is. Um, I will tell you up front, it's not an easy thing to do, but I would I would encourage you to start doing it as soon as possible. Now, it might only be one or two neighbors or family members or something, or it may be a whole lot more, but one or two is better than nothing. You do not want to try to be a lone a lone soul in the wilderness when things go bad to the point that we're talking about, because it's going to be nigh impossible for you to do everything that's going to need to be done, because everything else aside, at some point you got to sleep, right? And if it gets to the point we're talking about, somebody's going to have to be awake all the time. So that's kind of the whole point of encouraging you to find people. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you. You're probably behind the curve if you're just getting started now. We both feel like the clock is ticking pretty hard on events that are all out of our control. And if you don't already have something kind of in the works, you're probably behind the curve. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't at least make an attempt, because you never know what you may find. So we wanted to kind of cover a number of different things on that general idea. And Noel, you can jump in if I'm rambling too long on it.
Okay.
Um, but the there's a whole lot of points, and we're going to be all over the place. And we don't have anything scripted. We've kind of discussed what we want to talk about. We're just going to go with it. So, again, just try to catch a seat at the station with our train of thought as we're rolling. Um, I think one of a big thing to point out up front is everybody tends to get wrapped up when you get talking about a preparedness group, whatever name you want to put on it, that not everybody has to be a former SEAL Team 6 member. Like, there's a whole lot of jobs and things that need to be done. And I can already tell you, if you try to put together a group in this context, where you're talking about having to live and survive and protect yourself and stay fed and safe and all that, if all you've got is a bunch of SEAL Team 6 members, you're not going to fare so well. You need lots of different people. And the point with this all is, don't turn people away just because they're not some super operator. You need people who are good at gardening and growing things, people that are good at tending and taking care of animals, even if it's just chickens all the way up to livestock, etc. You need folks that have all kind of different skills. What are we talking about? Carpentry skills, basic engineering skills,
Sanitation. I
sanitation,
mean,
plumbing skills. I
yeah,
mean, you need all these kind of people. Um, don't turn away somebody maybe that's got good electrical skills, because
yeah.
I like that might be able to help scavenge a whole lot of, just as an example out of the blue, a whole lot of batteries out of cars and stuff, and know how to hook them up and give you some electricity of some kind.
And if
Just
I can jump in just a little bit, while
anyway.
we're kind of at the beginning of it, there's kind of like there's different types of people doing this. There's a person that is like, well, basically, John and I are kind of leaders. We can do things. John's a great leader. You're either going to be a leader and form a group and delegate and organize it, or you're going to get into a group. And so if you are wanting to form a group, John, his point is spot on. Look, it's not going to be about all the steely-eyed killers. You need some people with some marksmanship skills, but you're going to need a lot of these other things that he mentioned. And let's say that you are not in a group and you want to join a group and you think that you don't have any skills. Well, if you talk to the group and find out what they're kind of lacking, then whether you like it or not, say the group has a compound and they don't know anything about sanitation. Well, get down some manuals. Get down a bunch of Army manuals, whatever, military manuals, because they have all that kind of stuff. be the best at sanitation, know everything about it, know how far away the eating area is away from the train, how far it is from, where the gray water is and everything else. Learn that stuff. And it sounds boring, but in essence, it's not about you, it's about your family. It's about what you're going to bring to the table to support your family. So in my opinion, that's kind of the two, you're either trying to get into a group or
Right.
you have formed a group or a part of forming the group. So, and then you have to organize it. You can look at any Army staff manual and pick out the different, leadership positions, the operations officer, the administrative, the logistics, communications, and give everybody a job. Even if you're not ahead of those departments or those staff positions, everybody needs a job because you don't want idle hands, because there's going to be a lot of boring time. You're going to be, hoeing in the garden. You're going to be doing whatever. You're going to be sitting there on security. It's going to be boring, but everybody has to have a job, and everybody has to train at that job, whatever it is. So,
And this applies to whether you've got somebody that's got, some rural property, rural retreat or whatever, or if you've just got to put together people in a subdivision that you
yeah,
can rely on. Now, something I was thinking about last night, for those of you that are in subdivisions, one thing that's going to be a pain that you got to try to work around now is things like HOAs, because that's going to make it a lot more difficult of what you can go ahead and start doing on your own, such as putting in a small garden in your backyard
yeah,
and encouraging neighbors to, um, doing simple things like having a small radio antenna coming off your house or something. I mean, those are all little things that you might not think about right up front, but then when you start getting further into it and go to do it, it might be something that's a pain in the butt for you to deal with an HOA. So be thinking about stuff now. There are ways to, work around that, but you got to start figuring that out now. And everybody having a job, again, everybody needs to be capable of, for the most part, performing in a defensive role. But that doesn't mean, again, that everybody's got to be, super tier one operators. Um, I would rather have guys that had had a little bit of training, that were open and willing to learn and practice and get more training, than a bunch of dudes that already think they already know it all and don't want to listen to what you're trying to, lay down for them,
or,
and
or
end up,
don't show up to training. You know,
or don't show up because they don't think they need to, or don't like the way you're doing it, or whatever, because the kind of training they had is not appropriate for what you're doing. Um, so there's all kind of things like that. Now, one of the things you're going to have to get around and just get past in your mind is to stop worrying about, to a point, the almighty imperial federal government. Okay. When you're talking about getting a bunch of people together to try to grow food and stay in touch with each other and protect yourselves from the looting marauders and dregs of society, they're going to do their things should a grid down situation happen. You have to always have OPSEC in the back of your head. But at the same time, there are too many other folks higher on the priority list for the federal government to be overly concerned with. Um, the easiest way to keep that in check is, don't be stupid with what you talk about online. And if you get anybody in your midst that starts talking about stupid things, either tell them, sorry, you got to go, or remove yourselves from the area. But one way or the other, somebody just leave. You either tell them they got to leave, or you just leave.
mm-hmm.
I mean, there's nothing stopping you. Don't entertain the nonsense. Keep focused on what you're talking about here. Like for Noel and I, it's keeping our families fed and warm and dry, and safe, etc. That's what we're worried about. That's what we're trying to accomplish.
And if I could jump in here, so
You only
we're
got
talking about security and stuff. What we're probably not going to have. Well, I'm not never say never, but we're probably not going to have a Red Dawn type scenario. I mean, we could, right? But so, what is your threat? Well, if you look around, whether you live in a tract home, whether you live out, in the rural area, wherever, look around at the individuals that are probably living paycheck to paycheck. And if the grid goes down, there's no income, there's nothing at the stores. You, now things are getting bad. That those are the people, and it could be your neighbor that doesn't want to take any part in preparing for what's going to happen. Well, him and his family especially, after not eating for a week, they're going to get aggressive. All right. And this guy that you had a beer with, that you joke around with, now he's looking at his family and they haven't eaten for a while, and he knows that maybe you do this stuff. That's going to be your threat. It's and there are ways to get intel, and we actually on the schedule are going to talk about that later on, how to get intel. But Google it. Some of these biker gangs. Do you have biker gangs around you? They can be real aggressive. They really can. So figure out what it is. Where are your hot spots? But first, just look at your neighborhood and see who's in your neighborhood, who's not participating in things, and those are probably going to be the ones that are going to be, a problem.
when people That'll be the first ones, because when people get hungry and desperate,
Yeah.
they get really stupid. The
Yeah.
second one would be just your average dregs of society that are currently somewhat kept in check by the threat of going to jail. When you remove that threat of going to jail and there is no 911, et cetera, those folks will do their thing without concern. And they will also do what humankind has always done. They will likely find others like them to pair up with in packs and groups of their own. And their way of staying fed and taken care of will be to try to go and take from everybody else.
And there are
So,
groups that are planning to do that.
yes,
There are groups that are planning to
unfortunately,
do that.
there are people specifically out there, and they're unfortunately quite open about it, that their whole intention is to train up and just try to go take stuff that they want and need when the time comes.
So, and I
So,
didn't mean to get off on a tangent, but that's
no,
kind of
no,
your threat. That's kind of
right.
your threat that you're kind of gearing
You
towards,
got to keep,
you know.
and yeah, and I wanted to get to that, so I'm glad you brought it up. You've got to keep your threat in focus, um, because that goes a long way towards your planning and what you're going to be doing. And again, like Noel said, we can't say that a red dawn scenario is 100% out of the question. It The chance might be 1%, but it's still a chance. So you can't rule it out, but it's probably not going to be at the higher end of your threat matrix of who your larger concerns are going to be. So orient things around that type of mindset when you get into the defensive stuff and the protection. Now, um, in the chat, Skynet Cowboy mentioned one of the things I was going to get to, an area study,
Yeah.
and you can get super detailed into an area study, or you can keep it fairly general and simple. That's going to be for you to decide for your area how detailed you need to get. But
Mhm.
you can do simple things like taking note around you, of people. Like, who do you have that lives close by you that has different things, knows different things? Um, where are natural water sources around you?
Mhm.
Where are natural areas of food? Where are natural lines of drift, which is where people will generally want to move? Um, what is the crime and law enforcement presence
Mhm.
in your general area? Think of like a a 3 or 4 mile square area around wherever you plan on being at.
Where the supermarkets,
And
where the drugstores, all that kind of stuff. Absolutely.
I would do it for not only wherever you plan to be, but also where you live at as well. I would do both.
Absolutely.
Now, some folks might already be where they're going to be, so it would just be the one. But like if you don't live at where you're going to be, do it for both, because you never know what may happen where you get stuck at where you live and can't get to where you intend to go. So you need to have a little bit of
You can
a
also
mindset.
you can also do it along the way if 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 you have maybe problems, but there are some larger towns, you can actually do it, get it on a line and just do it. So and we'll get into this when we talk about Intel, the neighborhood, and all that kind of stuff for your
Right.
area. But there's a there's certain formats for it, and it's an area study is when you aren't necessarily on the ground, you find it like on the computer and find out where they are, and an area assessment is when you're actually there doing it and you confirm it's there. But that's kind of off the topic
Right.
again. But that it's a good tool to know, and your group should do that. And that's a great way to get people doing things and delegating that out. Okay, so Jimmy, you take the northeast part of the city. Bobby, you take the northwest, and delegate it out and kind of give them some guidance, and that's going to
Right.
jail them together. Now everyone's got a job, and now there's a common goal. So
Right. And with that too, think about, like Noel said, what's in between where you are and where you intend to be. You kind of want to do the same kind of study along the way, so you know what potential threats and or resources you've
right,
got between you.
absolutely,
Um, Jumping back real quick to, so if you're trying to get something started, an easy way to do that, and a lot of folks might think it's kind of cheesy, but simply take the initiative to plan out and have some kind of little get together, amongst your immediate neighbors or immediate friends and family. Um, it can be something real simple, maybe a cookout, maybe freaking ice cream social. I don't know. Keep it as nondescript as possible, and then just kind of talk to people. It, the very first step. You when you get people together like that, sometimes you won't have to do much other than just listen, because people will want to start talking once they're
right.
amongst each other, and you just kind of listen and you start getting a feel for, yeah, you know what, I might want to go talk more to that person, or yeah, that person's freaking, I can already tell their politics, morals, whatever, aren't even in the same universe as mine. Not even going
Yeah.
to bother talking to them. We put them down on the threat list. I mean, that's a simple way to start getting that kind of stuff
So
happening.
that's a great point, John. I actually did that in my neighborhood here. And what we did was um, we had some guys who were ham operators. So, I actually, kind of got people to volunteer for different positions. I didn't catch on like the group, with yours, John,
Right.
because you have different personalities. But what we do have, all right, every Monday night, we got a radio chat. We use FRS radios. Um, and more and more people in the neighborhood are beginning getting CERT qualified, community emergency response teams, so we can help with an emergency. We can work with law enforcement in the emergency, or first responders, because we get a lot of tornadoes around here. So it's a
Right.
different group. It's not the same type of group, and people aren't interested in some of the other things.
Right.
So it's
But but
personality driven, you know.
it's still a way to start kind of getting to know
Yeah.
people and feeling people out, though.
And if something happened,
And
people know each other and know kind of who we can
right,
rely on, you know?
right, and unfortunately, in that kind of situation, unless you've got a bunch of people that you already know, okay, they're willing to sit down and have the frank discussions of like, hey, we need to start planning where we can grow gardens at and get them started in everybody's
Yeah.
backyards. We need to start planning training days at the range every other month. We need to start organizing this, that, and the other. And you know, that may or may not happen. And if it doesn't happen, unfortunately, it may fall on you to go ahead and start doing that in the back of your head anyway and planning it out so that when it goes bad, you'll already have it mapped out in your head and can kind of take charge and take the lead on that and start delegating stuff. Um,
And when you start it, and you kind of give positions because you need to kind of delegate positions, especially at the beginning, follow up with those guys. Hey man, how is the supplies coming? And how is hey medical guy, do you have everybody's blood type? Do you know what elements they have? All this kind of stuff. Follow up on them, and get them participating in it. You know,
right.
that always, you know, kind of gets people going. Give them a task. So
Right, right. Um, so in addition to what Noel said earlier, you can look at how the military structures some of this stuff as far as their um, supply people and intelligence people, and on down the list. But another good option, just to give a shout out here, check out my friend Joe Dolio. Check out his book series. There's a lot of good stuff in the book series that he's got. He breaks it down really simple and covers a lot of this stuff. It doesn't mean you've got to carbon copy
right,
everything that we're saying that Joe puts in the books. I'm just referencing them because I think they're a great resource and they're one of the only ones out there like what he's got. There's a couple of other good ones, um, but the other ones that are out are more expensive. They're good to have, but I specifically like Joe's because they're affordable. Pretty much everybody can afford to get them, and they're broken down into smaller individual books so that you've got books on different
yeah, they
topics
are
and you
good
know
books.
which one to go
Yeah.
to find stuff.
And you're going to have to
Um,
modify whatever it is to suit your purpose. And if you choose to do, if you got some military guys, like the patrol order, you get the Ranger handbook where it says, indirect fire. Well, you might as well just cut that out because there ain't no mortars, there ain't no artillery, so trim it to what you're going to do, so forth.
right.
So
Most likely, you're not going to have belt-fed weapons
yeah,
and that sort of thing. So trim it down
yep,
and make it work for what you're doing. Um, there's some good folks you can go get information from, like just the one brother from another mother in chat there, good old douchebag's brother Dick.
hey Dick.
He's got all kind of pertinent pearls of wisdom that you can go learn from and pick up stuff from. Um,
He was on last week.
he was.
Yep,
Got to get him back on
yeah,
again.
that was a good time.
Um, but if you're looking, we touched briefly, and again, I told y'all we're going to be all over the place here, so we ain't got no set format or structure here. We touched on trying to set something up. If if you know of folks that are already doing something and you want to try to get in with them, do like Noel said, try to reach out and find out what's something that you can bring to the table that would be beneficial. Um, if they don't have anybody that's really knowledgeable or spooled up, say on communications, there's a whole lot of resources out there that you can go learn in a relatively short period of time. Some basic communication skills stuff that you can bring to the table,
Be a ham
and
operator. Get your ham license. That's good training.
start out with a free GMRS
Yep.
license, and then go from there. That's probably the most applicable if you're talking about a neighborhood set up anyway, or if you've got a rural area that you're going to have folks on. Um, just in case anybody's not paying attention, um, Cousin Dick is correct. You will not be calling in air support from A-10s.
Yeah.
You will also not be calling in helicopters to come medevac wounded. You will not be calling in helicopters to come
Resupply
uh,
you.
use
Yeah.
supplies. You got to get out of all that mindset, which is I'm going to try to avoid going down that rabbit hole, but I got to admit this: you you have to be careful in your own mind training, who and what you follow on YouTube, etc. Um, because there's a lot of guys out there that are, some unintentionally and some intentionally, giving out bad information. Just because somebody was in the military, regardless of what level they were at, does not mean that what they're putting out is appropriate and or applicable for you.
Yep.
If when it comes to the defensive stuff, say this and we'll move on. When it comes to the defensive stuff, if you see guys that everything they're oriented around is being done on a square range, then probably 80+% of what they're saying is not applicable for you. I didn't say 100% because there is stuff that is. Square range is absolutely viable and legit. There's things you have to do on square range. But in my experience over many, many years, that's all their stuff is geared towards. And if they're trying to convince you otherwise, they're leading you down the wrong way. And again, some do it intentionally, some don't. Um, Let me hit chat real quick. Um, Cousin Dick's right again. You're not going to be calling an ambulance.
Yep.
So you better start thinking real hard about the medical stuff. We've touched on some of that before. Um,
Gentleman Warrior's got a good point. Use gear that you can repair and or afford to lose. Or it doesn't have to be the most expensive thing. And one thing that you might want to think about is kind of get everybody in some form of the same uniform, like on a patrol or something. You know, it shows whoever's going up against you that, hey, these guys may have something going on if they're at that level. It
too
doesn't
many
necessarily mean
people,
that, but it's good for identification amongst yourselves. You know.
too many people tend to mock that and play it off. And look, there's a lot of reasons to look as much the same as possible.
Mm-hmm.
One, just like Noel said, being able to identify who's your guys versus the bad guys in the middle of a situation. Presenting a uniform appearance, there's a lot of reasons why the military does it. Some don't get talked about as often as others, but one of the things it's not talked about much is simple esprit de corps.
That's exactly right.
There is a mental aspect to looking and feeling on a conscious and subconscious level of part of a team, right? It's a thing. You can deny it all you want, but it's a thing. There's also, just like Noel said, and I've touched on this in videos before, when you look like you know what you're doing by the way you are dressed and presenting yourself in a semi professional manner and the way you act, you can oftentimes detour a lot of problems because just like every day, the bad guys are usually looking for easy targets.
Mm-hmm.
If you take any kind of good self-defense class and stuff that's worth its salt, one of the first things you're going to learn is when you're out and about in public, keep your head up and be looking around, look people in the eye. Don't go walking around like this. Be looking around. As you're walking along down the sidewalk, be looking around. Look at people. Look at what's going on around you. The bad guys know this. When you start making eye contact with people that are up to ill intention, they do not like that.
That's right.
To them, that screams, don't know what it is about you, but I don't like it because you're paying too much attention.
You've identified them. Yeah,
I want the person that's not paying any attention that I can sneak up on and ambush. The same thing will apply in bad times, even more so in bad times, I think, because if you're in a grid down situation when there's 911 works both ways, um, when the bad guys know, you know what, there ain't no hospital or doctors for me to get to if I tangle with a porcupine and get all tore up. They're going to look for targets that aren't porcupines. They're going to look
yeah.
for the little sheep over there who don't have a clue, and that's where they're going to get their easy meal at. When
Path
you
of
look
least resistance. Absolutely.
when you look like you know what you're doing. Now that's not a guarantee, and you got to be very careful about that because there are some out there. There are bad people out there that also know what they're doing. There are bad people out there that have a lot of skills, and if you come across one of those and they're willing to call your bluff and you're really not up to par, you're going to have a bad day. So
Yeah.
it behooves you to do that. But you know, it can deter trouble for you, and then it can also, whether some folks want to admit it or not, it can help you out because if you're lucky enough to have decent law enforcement in your area, um, they might look at you and go, "Oh, those folks have got their stuff squared away. Um, we might want to ask them for help or just leave them alone. Hey, y'all cover your area, and if you need something, let us know. Then they can go concentrate on other things."
Yeah.
Some will like that. Um, let me touch one thing right here. Nice cakes, don't get offended. We're busy talking and not necessarily looking at the chat. If we can get to
Yeah.
questions, we will. The point of this video is not to necessarily answer everybody's questions. I'll go ahead and answer it because I don't want you to feel like we're ignoring you. It's not anything like that. Um, do I think things are going to go bad? Yes, I do. I don't know when, I don't know what extent, but there are certain points of no return that we have already crossed that are mathematically unrecoverable.
Yeah.
One just being the economic side. We have crossed points in the economic side that there is no fixing, not pleasantly and easily. Morally and so on and so forth, we've crossed areas there. There are divisions now in the country that cannot coexist. At some point, something's going to give. I don't know what. I don't know when. I won't pretend to tell you who. The other thing, as far as elections go, not the point of this conversation, but no, I personally do not think that at this point elections really much matter anymore, other than at a very, very basic level, especially when it comes to like your city council, county commissioners, your county sheriff. At that level, I think you've still got a good chance of influence.
Or your
Um,
HOA. You know,
but
at
but
that point.
but even that's getting sketchier by the day.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
huge state level and national level, I think most of them are just one side's just a light version of the other. They want to keep the status quo and the good old boy system going along, and they're just, as all the cliches go, two wings of the same bird and opposite sides of the same coin.
And look at
So
all the protests that are going on just after the Israeli thing. I mean, people are showing their hand right now. And I did, you know, it's amazing to me. I didn't know these people even lived in this country like that. You know, the underground, the underbelly is showing itself right now. So, yeah,
not to those numbers,
yeah,
not to those numbers. So anyway,
right.
back where we were going. Don't discount looking uniform with each other. And again, it doesn't mean you've got to be like freaking mirrored carbon copies of each other, but have have similar clothes. It's, and it's not for every day. It's for the defensive side, right? If you've got people on security duty, out on security patrols, that sort of thing, have as close to similar gear as you can. Have similar, and it could be as simple because again, not everybody's made of money. You might all go to your local surplus store and everybody just get a woodland BDU top.
Yep.
That might be it. That might be your uniform. Is everybody's got a woodland BDU top from a surplus store.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever pants you're wearing doesn't matter. Whatever hat you're wearing doesn't matter. Try to get your gear as much the same as you can, but even then, it doesn't have to be identical. There are pros and cons for having your gear set up fairly much the same. Like if Noel and I are out and he went down, I know where he's got stuff at on his gear that I could get if he needed something or I needed something, and I don't have to ask him, "Hey, where's this at?" Because he's got his set up pretty much the same as mine. So from a practical standpoint and a visual standpoint, that stuff all plays in. Um,
And I want to kind of change, dealing with the group and what the group does. So you kind of have the uniform and gentleman warrior saying, in your opinion, should the group incorporate ranks and insignias? Hey, that's up to the group. Whatever you want to do. I
if,
mean,
if that's your thing, yeah.
want to do it?
Just remember, just remember, at that point, things won't be a full democracy within your group.
Yeah, yeah,
There has to be somebody to make a final decision on things. And you will also run into problems if you start assigning rank and insignia and all that of uh, people getting resentful of somebody that may or may not be in charge. And the next thing you know, you got a bunch of self-appointed colonels
yeah.
that don't have any business being a corporal, much less a colonel. So personally, I say stay away from it. Again, you're not trying to do a militia here. You're talking about a preparedness group, mutual assistance group, whatever thing you want to call it. But yes, Dick just went right to where I was fixing to go with that. Um, if there is, and I think it's pretty low on the scale, honestly, but if there is any kind of military presence, um, you start sticking rank and insignia, that can be a bad thing in
Yeah,
a lot of ways versus just a bunch of guys that just happen to all have the same hunting clothes.
yeah. I personally wouldn't want to wear it, but
I I
it's all
wouldn't.
dependent on the group. And so one thing that John, you're dealing with now. All right, say you form a group, and the group has got to have a place to go to. So you have to make sure that place has the ability to either expand or the capability to house and take care of the people in the group. So, it's always kind of good maybe to have a big group. It's got its good side and its bad side. You got to feed them all. But it also, I mean, if where you have your septic tank can only hold, is only set up for 10 people, but yet you got 15 or 20 people, you got a problem. You got
Right.
sanitary problems and all that kind of stuff. I think I mentioned this the last live stream, but remember, guys, in the Revolutionary War, all right, out of 600,000 men that were killed, 400,000 of them died of non-combat injuries. So that's dysentery, whatever. All right. So you're going to have that same problem. So you got to make sure that your site is able to house and take care of the people that are in your group.
Yeah, I mean, and it's the same in the Civil War, so on and so
Yeah.
forth. You have far more deaths from sanitation related issues than you did actual, bullets and et cetera.
Yep.
And there's a ton of different areas like that I don't think enough people actually give thought to because everybody gets wrapped around the guns and the gear and that's important, but it's only one factor of a whole bunch. And it doesn't matter whether you've got a one rural retreat to go to everybody's going to be at, or if it's all of you in your subdivision, the same things are still going to apply. you still need to figure out how are you going to handle sanitation? How are you going to handle having clean water to drink? And where's all your dirty water going to go? Be it dirty water from taking a bath to using the bathroom to whatever. Those are the kind of things that, if you're in subdivision and if you're, get group people together, y'all got to sit down and figure out, well, crap, how can we make something work? You know, and it might be that you have to come up with some kind of uh, portable power system, be it, and this is something that I think more people should start looking at. The ability to have portable power right now is really easy because you can get a little small um, charge controller inverter combo off of Amazon for $100 right now, and you can get a couple of 200-watt solar panels for under $100. Those and one or two car batteries, and say a small pump, and you've got the ability to pump water, pump sewage, whatever. And it might be that you hook up that power at somebody's house and you power their septic um, system, and then every week you move it to somebody else's house. That
Mhm.
way, it gives the septic systems at each house. This is barring that you're even on septic system. Some places won't be, um, a chance to empty out. I know out where I'm at, everybody's on a septic system. Um, but if you're on city sewage and water, that's going to be a whole problem that you got to figure out because
That's
when
exactly right.
those pumping stations aren't pumping anymore,
Mhm.
I mean,
Gonna get real stinky.
oh, let's see, how do I find a group of good people? Well, that's what we touched on in the beginning. It's there is no simple answer to that question. If you can't find anybody, then you need to try to take the initiative yourself and uh, start looking around. There's a couple of places online you can go. There's a couple of better forums. There's not too many of them I recommend, but I know, just for another plug, my friend Brushbeater has got a forum that is pretty good, and there's regional areas on there you can go in and look for people in your general region or state or whatever. um, and don't be afraid to reach out and talk to people if you're doing. And since we're on that subject, we'll go down that rabbit hole just a little bit. If you go and excuse me, hang on a second. If you go somewhere like Brush Beaters Forum and you go into the region for where you're at, let's say you put a post up or you see a post of somebody that's close by you, and you want to reach out to them. Hey, I'd like to meet up. Always do that somewhere other than your house. Like find a coffee shop somewhere, to go meet up at and have coffee. Always let your first meetings be somewhere away from home. I mean,
Mhm.
that should go without saying, but not everybody thinks about that. Do that until you get to knowing people.
Most
Um,
towns have, if you like, get on Google, like Huntsville Prepper Network, and they actually meet. So, at some place like around here, they will meet at the library like 2 times a month. So now you can actually see the people, look the people in the face. You know, you got to start somewhere. I'm not saying all those people are going to be a part of your group, but maybe there are groups there. You can pick and choose by personalities, and you can actually talk to them.
right.
So
Just just what cousin Dick just pointed out in the chat. That's another good spot.
yeah, good
Uh,
churches. Yeah, absolutely. Um,
Black Dissident, welcome aboard, my brother. Um,
hey,
Gentleman Warrior, opinion on all family member groups. Well, That depends. I mean, I've got family that ain't blood, and I've got blood that ain't family.
Yeah,
Okay,
me too.
so I mean, it all depends on. Noel and I have no blood relations that I'm aware of, but as far as I'm concerned, he is family.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
it it depends on the family. Um, I've got family members that I would not want anywhere around in bad times.
Me too.
Like I've got a whole lot of family members that have no clue what I do and where I'm going to do it at or anything else.
Hmm.
Um, I've got friends that have no clue. So, you know, that's 100% a depends type situation. That depends on your family. I mean, if you're fortunate enough to have a big family and everybody's on board, that can be a really, really good thing, especially if you've got a diverse skill set amongst
Hmm.
everybody,
But be
because
loyal, you know.
then you've got a whole lot of loyalty there and
Yeah.
willingness to stick your neck out for each other and a feeling of the importance of protecting and taking care of each other, making sure each other's fed and
Hmm.
warm, doesn't get sick and hurt, so on and so forth. Um,
Yep.
yeah, Dick's got a point. It depends on your location. It could be all family or it could be no family. Um, you know, it can just vary. Um, there,
You got
I'm
to
not.
get out and and meet people,
Yeah, you do.
basically. You know.
Because again, the chances of you having all the skill sets that you really ideally want to have just within your family is usually
Yeah.
pretty slim. It's usually pretty slim. You got to get out and meet people. And again, look, don't be afraid to meet people. Just keep it in your head. Don't talk about stupid things.
Mhm.
Like it's usually that simple. And if somebody starts talking about stupid things, tell them to knock it off or they're going to have to leave. And then if they don't, tell them to leave. And then if you're not the one running the show or whatever, and they don't stop, then you get up and leave. It's literally that simple.
Yep.
Because if you're ever at a event that you can't just get up and leave, you shouldn't have been there in the first place.
Yeah.
So that should be a big clue right up front.
And look, if you want an example of family, look at like the Quakers, the Amish. I mean, an EMP would hit, they wouldn't even know it. And they would just
Nope.
keep on doing their thing. But someone needs a barn, so everybody in the community, all the families get together and go build that barn for these people. So
They also are one of the few that actually have diverse skill sets amongst their
yeah,
their people of knowing how to grow food, animal husbandry, taking care of livestock,
building things.
building building barns,
Yep.
running plumbing, getting water. I mean, like you said, you could have a freaking full blown, like the worst fictional book you could ever think of type EMP scenario happen, and it would probably take a while before the Amish even realized that it had happened,
They wouldn't even miss a
and
beat. I
then
mean,
they
they're
would
just,
just
yeah,
be like, okay, well, we'll just keep doing what we're doing.
yeah,
The only place they might end up having problems is on the security side of being able to keep and take care of what they've got from
yeah.
those that would
That's a good point.
want to come
Yeah,
in and take it. So that's where I kind of would differ with them a little bit. Look, we got to
yeah.
be, we want to try to avoid violence, as much as we can, but there's a time and a place, and when it's the time and the place, it's got to be you got to flip that switch from smiling to like Vlad Dracul. We'll be putting heads on pikes if we have to. So
Yep.
um, let's see.
I think we've answered most of the questions so
Yeah,
far.
I think so. And
Yeah.
I know we got off a whole bunch of rabbit holes and stuff. But like I said, we didn't have this scripted or anything. Um,
And basically, like we started it out, you know, if you want to form a group, you've got to be a leader, and you've got to kind of get it going. You've got to delegate things. If you want to find a group, find one, but have a useful skill. Make yourself useful. I mean, if you,
all right.
like I said, if you don't have any, you think you have any skill, find out what the group may need and be an expert at that, whatever they don't have. You know, so
Right. That's that's one of the easiest ways. Figure out what you're good at, and then figure out how you can adapt it to a bad
yeah.
times grid down situation. And you know, and again, don't get overly wrapped around the situation. Right? Too many too many people get too focused on individual causes. Look, regardless of the cause, the end results and the needs are pretty much all going to be the same.
Hmm.
There will be slight variables that'll change, but I think one of the biggest things people make a mistake of is worrying about and thinking about that the almighty imperial federal government is going to be this huge problem. And people, you got to understand, if this gets to a full blown nationwide grid down situation where you got to actually do the kind of stuff that we're concerned about doing here, there won't be any almighty imperial federal government for you to be even remotely concerned and worried about.
Hmm.
I've
And
said that before, especially when it comes to being worried about the boogeyman of martial law. I don't think enough people actually have sat down and thought about what it would take to implement martial law on the continental United States of America. The continental United States of America is huge. We are big.
mhm,
There are hundreds of thousands of square miles of land and roads and intersections. The entire military combined only has around 1.5 million people. And that's not all people that would be toting guns. That's a whole lot of
right.
clerks and janitors.
Admin, yeah,
Okay. The number of people that it would take to say implement martial law in a state where you couldn't travel, couldn't move, couldn't leave, couldn't come and go would be astronomical because you have to have multiple people on multiple shifts at every single road and checkpoint leading in and out of the state
everywhere.
everywhere.
Yeah,
Again, the multiple shifts, multiple people thing. You would be lucky to have enough people. The government's barely going to be able to take care of a couple of key cities. And I would be willing to bet you a ridiculous amount of money that they're going to devote every resource they can to A, where they're at, right? Because
hmm,
obviously they're going to want to be kept safe because they're the government. So Washington D.C. is going to get a whole lot of assets thrown at it to protect it. Then they're going to want to have a couple of key ports and airstrips, like say Atlanta Airport, um, Dulles International, Virginia Beach, um, maybe a couple of coastal cities with big port facilities, you know, things like that.
and a lot
Those
of the law enforcement won't even show up because they're going to take care of their own families. They got their own problems.
That's the next thing I was fixing to get at. A good part of the military and law enforcement themselves, right here, they're going to be home with their families because like it or not, there's a lot of people in law enforcement military that are only there for a paycheck. It's a job to them and nothing more. And when they're not getting a paycheck, they ain't showing up for work, especially if there's a threat of their own families being in harm, or hungry or whatever. They're going to be with them. So again, I know that's another little bit of a rabbit hole, but I wanted to touch on that because I think too many people get too worried about what the almighty imperial federal government's going to be doing. And believe me, if it's that bad, they are not going to be capable, much less interested in sending people out to come do artillery and drone strikes on your little rural farm where you're just trying to grow food and
Yeah.
survive, because they're going to be worried about doing the same thing themselves and handling the chaos that is going to be major cities.
Yeah.
Major cities are going to be nightmares.
And depending on personalities, let's say you're out in a rural area, it's there's nothing wrong with getting to know your sheriff, getting to know your precinct commander, getting to know some of these people, depending on personalities now, okay? Because when things go down, you know, they might be able to give you some intelligence. So again, that's personality driven. So
Yep. I mean, there's a lot of things like that to be thinking about and take into consideration. Um, Again, cousin Dick, being the smart fella that he is, it does all end the same. People are going to revert to tribalistic animals. They're going to go primal. I've seen it firsthand. They will do it, 100% guaranteed, and that is going to be your number one threat: is people wanting to come and take what you've got, uh, just because uh, they don't have it. They're hungry, they're starving, they're desperate, or they're not worried about going to jail.
yeah,
Um, so, you know,
we've both
let's
been in,
see.
in bad situations, and and both of us learned a lot of lessons and seen a lot of things as far as disasters.
I've seen people do I've seen people do things in a disaster that you literally you felt like your dog whenever you're making funny noises at him and he just cocks
Yeah,
his head
yeah,
looking at you like,
yeah.
what are you doing? I've literally had that look on my face watching people do things that there was just no explanation for and no reason for, but yet they did them anyway. And you're going,
Mhm.
this doesn't make any sense, but they're doing them. It doesn't matter whether it makes sense or not. Um, you know, it doesn't have to make sense. You just got to go with it. Um, Again, don't focus so much on the cause and the why. Just recognize that people are going to be people,
It's
and
happening. Yeah,
it's happening, and be ready to deal with it.
yeah.
Um, so
But
yeah,
it's forming a group. It is not easy. I just
no,
want to.
no,
It's not easy, and you got to get the keyword warriors. Either they're going to get off the keyboard and do it, or they're no good to you.
right.
I mean, you got to get out and do stuff. So
Y'all need to take a chill in the chat now. We're here to learn and help each
yeah,
other. Just because somebody's not doing like what you want, um, I try to keep the chat as open as I can. But if you haven't figured out by now, I'm not here to make money, and your subscription means nothing to me. I don't
yeah,
care if I have 1,000 subscribers or one subscriber. So we're sitting across the table having coffee, chatting here. Keep it
yeah.
that way. If you wouldn't say
Please.
it to somebody's face, don't say it in the chat.
Mhm.
That's all I'm saying. Just keep it keep it simple, guys. Anyway, um, Oh, we got off in another rabbit hole again. What else was I going to cover?
We covered a lot tonight.
Yeah, and I know we didn't get deep on any one thing.
Well, you can't do it in an hour because there's so
You,
many facets. I mean, you know as well as I do, John. I mean, trying to do what we're doing in our group. There's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of different facets of it.
I
So
mean, you could go down. You could do this for hours and hours straight, and still not cover everything that needs to be covered. I mean, for Noel and I and our folks, it's a constant. I mean, we're constantly talking and going over stuff like on a darn near daily
yeah,
basis,
yeah.
and still don't feel like we have enough time to cover everything we need to do
Well,
just
and
internally.
you know what? I mean, you kind of touched on it there, John. So we've created a chat amongst the members, and we chat
Right.
every day. And so not only do we know each other's personality, but now we're staying in touch with each other. So I mean, get on Signal, get in a text each other group or whatever you do. That kind of builds camaraderie, stays in touch. Everybody knows what everybody's doing. You're
Right.
starting to find out personalities, so forth and so on. So that's an idea too, and we
Yeah.
do that.
So just to touch on what Brizzy's saying real quick. So I'm not sure exactly which way you're meaning that, but I'm gonna take it that you're meaning it this way. Um, okay, yes, there are a lot of people in here that are willing to turn on you as your fellow countrymen in a heartbeat, but but to what extent? So if you have a neighbor find out that you're trying to grow food and have a group of people that are you've got some place you're trying to have a farm at and grow vegetables and have some chickens and maybe a couple of pigs or goats or whatever, and you're learning how to put in solar power and store water and all that. Okay, what's somebody gonna do right now? Grid up? Are they gonna call the government? Hey, my neighbor's trying to have food. Okay, to what end? Yeah, they're
Mhm.
willing to dime me out if they don't like it, but to what end? If it all goes bad, first off, they ain't going to have any way of calling anybody, and secondarily, going back to what we just discussed, even if they did have a way of calling somebody, there ain't going to be nobody to call to come do anything about you growing your food and protecting it from looters.
Yeah.
There won't be anybody. So people diming you out, yeah, that's a concern that you need to think about right now for grid up times, but that's a totally different context
And
discussion than what we're talking about here.
right, and like you said, I don't know the context necessarily of that question, but we are not, I say again, not promoting, planning, or anything. This is not a resistance movement. That people would turn people in. This is not that.
This is,
Okay.
I'm trying to keep my family fed, my
Right.
friends fed, keep shelter over our heads, keep us from getting sick and hurt, and keeping people from coming and taking what we have and killing us to take it.
Right.
That's it. I could I could honestly, for the sake of this discussion, care less about the government or anything about them because it's got nothing to do
Yeah.
with them.
Totally.
This is completely irrelevant of the government.
Right.
The
I just want to clear
government,
that up.
the government can go do whatever the government feels like it needs to do. Um, I'm trying to think if there's any other rabbit holes we want to go down because
Oh,
there's
there's
a few
plenty,
that
I'm
I know we.
sure. But I think we've hit on most of the topics generally.
Yeah, because the other ones that I'm thinking about, if we hit on them, we're liable to be here another 2 hours, and
Yeah.
I
Well,
know we
a
both got
lot of the stuff that we probably hit. I mean,
things
we've
to
got
do.
guys. We've put together a list of topics that all intertwine. So one rabbit hole goes to another rabbit hole. Like tonight, We talked a little bit about, I forget who it was, we put out the area study, and we're actually going to touch on some of that stuff. But you can see how the reason why we go down rabbit holes is because everything kind of blends together, you know, to make a
Right.
group and to make things function. Um, so you got to slice the pie and kind of create slices of it before you get the whole pie. I don't know if that makes sense, but I know what I'm saying. So
Yeah. Um, yeah. We're going to touch on a lot of this stuff in future videos. This was more of just kind of again an overview broaching the
introduction.
subject and the topic because we wanted y'all to be thinking about either getting with other people or organizing it yourself now. Um, like I said, I think it's possibly, I'm not going to say it's too late because it's never too late, but I think you're definitely behind the curve. So you need to start
Mm-hmm.
trying to figure out something now, even if it's just one friend. Like having one friend that you can get on board with is better than nothing because at least if you've got that, you've got somebody else to try to share the load with of figuring out problems, figuring out how to handle the food, the water, the medicine, all that stuff. And then if things do go bad, you've got one person that you can actually get some sleep.
Yeah.
You've got somebody that can stay awake while you sleep, and then you're awake while they sleep. Just two people makes all the difference in the world over um, over a bunch of other folks. Um, and another reference, if you folks want, there is some very good fiction out there about groups of folks operating in very realistic ways, even though they're fictional stories. And the gentleman that just entered the chat there, none other than Mr. Walt Browning himself, has a very, very good fictional books series that I highly recommend called Charlie's Requiem. Go look it up. It's good stuff. I'm a big fan of Charlie's Requiem. So just to give him a little quick plug there, he is a friend and put some good thought into what's happening, and I think he gives a pretty good overall outlook of things. There may be a couple of things here and there that I might nitpick in person with him on, but it would be all in good fun. And in general, he does put good stuff into a fictional story, if for no other reason than just to get your brain turning and thinking about, if I was in the same situation that's in this story, what resources do I have available to me to handle it? How would I
Yeah.
handle it? How could I do it differently? Et cetera, et cetera. So don't discount using that as an option as well. Um, and unfortunately, on that, we're a little over an hour. I think we probably ought to call it because, like I said, we can keep getting on topics and just go
Yeah.
forever, and then the next thing you know, we'll be nodding off here in front of the camera because we both got lots going on the next few days.
Yep.
Let's see, Walt. I'm glad you were able to pop in. Sorry, it's right here at the last minute, but um, we're going to try to do these guys as often as we can. Again, like Noel said, we've got list of stuff we want to cover. This was just to get you thinking on getting with other people. We're going to try to cover other things, and again, we make no claims to have all of the answers, the right answers, or anything else. All we can do is give you our thoughts based on our personal experiences and what we see happening. And Noel and I have a bunch of mutual folks that we also draw
Mm-hmm.
info and stuff from. So we'll keep bringing out as much as we can, but go look elsewhere and get other info. Just again, make sure what you're getting is applicable to you.
But one thing is that we are doing it. I mean, we're, you know,
Yeah,
when it's coming to this stuff, we're actually doing it. Um, Whether we want to do it more or less, you know, as far as time, but we're doing it and we're learning as we go. Um,
you know,
so
I I've mentioned that before. Just because I don't always show you guys all the stuff, we're doing it all the time, and 90% of the time when we're doing it, we're too busy doing it to set the camera up and show
right,
you what we're doing.
right,
There's been more than once that we've set out with the intention of, hey, we've got this training day situation, work day, whatever going on. Let's get some video done. And then all of a sudden the day's over with, and oh crap, we didn't get any video
right.
done because we were too busy actually doing what we're doing. So just because we're not sticking out there all kind of flashy stuff in front of you don't mean we're not doing it. It just means either A, we just hadn't got time, or B, sometimes there's just stuff that I'm not going to show
Yeah.
you because
We're just,
I'll tell you a little bit about it, but you don't need to
we're just not going to show
see.
you.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, so um, it just is what it is, and I'm not going to try to blow smoke up your skirt, just like I've never tried to. I'm not here to give you entertainment videos. We're not here to give you flashy cutscenes and cool hip uh, intros and transitions and fancy editing, and I'm not giving you a TV show here.
Yeah.
If you want entertainment, there's plenty of places out there to go to get the entertainment. This ain't about entertainment. Um, this is just about us trying to share what we can because we feel called to share it. So we're going to share as much or as little as we feel called to share, and that's what I've always
And
done.
it's two guys talking,
Uh,
you know,
yeah,
just talking experience. And so, guys, before we forget, our plan is, and we're going to try and adhere to, do this every Tuesday at 7 o'clock. Every Tuesday at
8
seven
o'clock.
o'clock. Well, yeah, I'm sorry. So we live in different time zones. So Eastern time is 7 o'clock. So I live in Central time. So I mean Eastern time it's 8 o'clock. Central time it's seven
Right,
o'clock. I'll get it. Yeah,
right.
it's late. So
Um, Nice cakes. Yes, you can email me. Do not get offended if it takes me a little while to get back to you. I'm extraordinarily busy with work and such. So I will reply to you, but it might not be right away. So don't get offended or give up if it's not instantaneous. Um, oh, cousin Nick's definitely gonna squeeze in
yeah,
another Tuesday, and we're gonna have to drag Black Dissident on here too.
absolutely.
We gotta get him in on some
Good to see
conversations.
he's
So
on.
yeah, yeah. Um, I'll I'll get with him about that off to the side. So anyway, all right, guys, we'll wrap it up. Um, Again, I don't want to make these too long because then people start losing interest and kind of lose the point of it. So we will hopefully see y'all next week. Again, reiterating and just dittoing what Noel said, we're going to try to do it every Tuesday night. Sometimes life may happen, we might not be able to,
Yep.
but generally Tuesday nights what we're going to shoot for, and we'll just see what happens from there. So, all right, y'all take care. As always, stay safe, do the things, and we'll see you next week, hopefully.
See you guys. Thanks for watching.